Hello and welcome back to the Driven Forward podcast. I am your host, Felix Jimenez, Field CTO here at Driven, and I am really looking forward to today's episode. Over the past few years, we've seen artificial intelligence become part of every technology conversation. We've seen AI help us write some emails, generate some code, summarize documents, and even, answer some questions throughout the day. And most of us have become comfortable thinking that AI is just a really smart assistant. Today, I want to challenge that way of thinking because we're entering a completely different era, the era of frontier AI. And I believe that this is going to be one of the biggest shifts in cybersecurity since the advent of cloud computing. Now, today we'll talk about what frontier AI actually is, why Anthropic launched Project Glasswing, what Mythos brings to cybersecurity, and why organizations really need to start thinking differently about defending their environments. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Let's start with a question. Why would one of the world's leading AI companies intentionally restrict access to one of their newest models, right? Normally, technology companies want as many people using their products, and Anthropic is taking a very different approach. That should tell us something. The answer begins with what every security practitioner understands, and that's dual use, right? Many technologies can be used for both legitimate purposes or malicious or nefarious ones. Take, for example, encryption. Encryption protects sensitive information, can also protect criminal communications. Those penetration testing tools that organizations use to help improve their security are the same tools that can be used by attackers, right? And artificial intelligence has entered that same category, except that the scale is exponentially larger, right? We're no longer talking about AI simply helping us write Python scripts. We're talking about systems that can reason through complex software, that can understand architecture, that can identify vulnerabilities, that can evaluate attack paths or threat vectors, and they can assist researchers in ways that weren't possible just a few years ago. That's what people mean when they talk about frontier AI. It's not simply just another large language model. It's a model that can demonstrate a new level of reasoning across complicated technical problems. That brings us to Mythos, right? And there's been some confusion because people often talk about Glasswing and Mythos interchangeably. They're not the same thing. Mythos is the frontier AI model. Glasswing is the program surrounding it. Think of Mythos as the engine, and Glasswing is the controlled environment, right? That determines who can use that engine and under what circumstances, right? And that's an important distinction. Mythos wasn't designed as a vulnerability scanner. It wasn't built to replace security products, right? It represents something much more significant. It reasons, right? So imagine giving an experienced cybersecurity architect or security architect rather, access to thousands of source code repositories, network diagrams, identity configurations, cloud permissions, application logic, and then asking one question. If you wanted to compromise this organization, how would you do it? Right? Traditional security tools look for known weaknesses. They compare, signatures. They identify missing patches. They look for indicators that they've seen before. Mythos approaches the problem differently. It builds an understanding of the environment. It connects relationships between the systems. It evaluates how multiple weaknesses interact. Right? It asks whether a vulnerability is actually exploitable, right? Whether seemingly unrelated issues can combine into a meaningful attack pattern, right? And that's a fundamental shift. The question changes from what vulnerabilities exist to what actually matters. Now let's talk about Glasswing. If Mythos is capable of that level of reasoning, why wouldn't Anthropic simply make it available to everyone? This goes back to the dual use that we were talking about a little while ago. Because sophisticated defensive capabilities can become sophisticated offensive capabilities. And that's a challenge. The better AI becomes at understanding software, the more valuable it becomes to both defenders and attackers, right? Glasswing is Anthropic's attempt to solve that problem. It gives qualified organizations responsible access to frontier AI so that they can strengthen their defenses before similar capabilities become available to others or more broadly available. The objective isn't exclusivity, it's preparation, right? Think of critical infrastructure, financial services, healthcare, government, large enterprises. all need time to evaluate and reduce risk. Glasswing creates that opportunity. There's another important lesson here, right? For years, cybersecurity has been drowning in data, right? Security teams don't suffer from a lack of alerts. They suffer from too many alerts, right? Too many vulnerabilities, too many logs, too many dashboards, right? Too many products. The challenge has never been in collecting information. The challenge has always been in understanding the context. Why? Because context answers questions like, can this vulnerability actually be exploited, right? What systems are exposed? What identities have access? Do we have any compensating controls already in place? How does it affect the business, right? This is where frontier AI becomes interesting, not because it replaces analysts, because it helps experienced analysts reach these conclusions much faster. It accelerates reasoning, not judgment, and that distinction matters. Recently, Driven was accepted into Anthropic's cyber verification program. I don't think that's interesting because it gives us access to another AI platform. I think it's interesting because it reflects where the industry is headed. The cyber verification program exists because Anthropic understands and recognizes that advanced cyber capabilities require governance. Verification isn't unrestricted access, right? It's controlled access for organizations performing legitimate defensive work under defined safeguards, right? Our goal isn't to generate more findings. It's to improve the quality of the security research, right? To validate attack paths, to strengthen detection engineering, to help our customers move from uncertainty to evidence. Our president and chief operating officer in the announcement says, and I quote, "The goal isn't more findings. It's reducing the time between a credible signal, a verified risk, and a completed defensive action." That's where I think every security program needs to go. So where does this leave enterprise leaders? I think that there are three questions that every CIO, CTO, and CISO should be asking and are likely already asking. The first being, how will frontier AI change the way my security team operates over the next 3 years? The second, do we have the governance necessary for AI systems to be able to interact with production infrastructure? And finally, how do we ensure that AI accelerates expert decision-making instead of replacing critical thinking? Those questions are more important than asking which AI model is currently leading the benchmark charts. I'll leave you with one final thought. In recent years, cybersecurity has been driven by automation. And in my estimation, the next decade or so are going to be driven by reasoning. In organizations that can combine frontier AI with disciplined governance, experienced engineers, and evidence-based decision-making, those companies will move faster than attackers. Not because they have more tools, but because they understand their environments better. That's the real promise of frontier AI. Not replacing human expertise, but amplifying it. I appreciate your time today and look forward to seeing you in the next episode. For now, I'm Felix Jimenez. I'll see you next time.